What do you fear about the future? As a younger person, my worst fear is not being able to ever earn enough income to be able to hold a sustainable let alone happy life without having to work myself to death with my partner and make them have to work themselves to death to sustain us. This is my life right now. Save every cent you can now and use compounding interest accounts to save even more. My partner and I even have some solid savings and are not living paycheck to paycheck, and still this is getting to us. Especially now with the little one at home. Like, we're going to therapy for the consequences it's had on our lives type getting to us. Save now. I fear deepfakes getting more advanced. Maybe in the future video could no longer be used as evidence because you couldn't see the difference. Came here to post this one. The idea that we can no longer vet information effectively because information technology has made the production of believable false information trivial is kind of the only tool that authoritarians need to rule the world. It's terrifying when you think of it. We've already got a massive problem with media organizations using real video to manipulate viewers or just picking and choosing what to cover to fit the narrative they're pushing. Widespread easily created deepfakes might be a blessing in disguise. Once it's easy enough to do, maybe people will start to be more skeptical on balance. Alzheimer's. I've seen personally how devastating it is for everyone, and I fear it happening to me. My grandma was diagnosed 3 years ago. Grandpa and grandma go to Spain for 6 months to spend the winter in good weather. Every time they come back, grandma isn't grandma. And last year it took a toll on grandpa too. It's sad to see this man working hard his whole life and now they get to spend time together. Grandma doesn't remember anything. Grandpa now does all the important stuff, and he had cancer last year, which was hard on him because maybe grandma would be alone next year. He is clean of cancer now. Grandma hasn't changed in a year but still knows me and my family. It's depressing to think about them coming back next year and grandma forgot about me, but at least they had a beautiful life. Not karma whoring or anything. Just wanted to share with you. Every time my parents call at an unexpected moment, I always assume the worst. My dad just butt dialed me and my heart went in my throat. When he didn't say anything, I assumed he was too choked up to talk. Then I heard him whistling and realized what was going on. Clean water shortages. Literally. Wars over water. Dying of thirst. Lol, he doesn't know of the water wars of 2037. Edit. What year is it? 2020? I am definitely not a time traveler. Ooh boy. Society not reacting to mass unemployment caused by automation. Major disruption of fuel and food supply. Total collapse of the welfare system. Meaning getting old or sick is a death sentence. All of this only touches on the environment seemingly being irreversibly ducked. I really hate how everyone tiptoes around these discussions. Like duck. It'll eventually happen. Maybe not in your lifetime, but please acknowledge the fact that you've been wheezing for weeks because of the ducking fires that burn all over our country, yet you want me to go pick up 2 trailer loads of wood for your fire next winter? What in the flying duck is going through people's heads? Dying alone. This idea scares me as well. Though try not to think about it too much, since it could be depressing aflol. What's the difference between dying alone and dying not alone? I'm really struggling to understand. Dying alone equals less people to upset equals actually a better thing. The moral of the story: don't be selfish. Guys. Think broader. Antibiotic resistant bacteria. I personally blame people not listening to their doctors and not taking their entire antibiotic regimens, and the fact that everyone has to use the hand sanitizers. I call the ducking time. I blame the people that run out and get antibiotics every time they get a cold. So many of the middle-aged women I work with do this. It's a cold. You'll be better in 3-4 days. Mass migration following climate change. I wouldn't say that I fear this, but I am most curious to see how the world responds to climate refugees. Judging by the reception of refugees around the world recently, I'm not optimistic. I'm atheist, and I'm terrified of death. I'm 46 and the years are flying by. I remember my parents said it would happen. Not looking forward to the void and very much appreciating every moment here. Being dead seems not to be a problem. Consider it this way, before you were born and conscious, you weren't there either. And it didn't bother you the least because you just weren't there. So it is really the dying and the thought of dying and being not around anymore that bothers you. Once it is done, it is no problem for you anymore. So, the solution is rather simple. Enjoy life while you still have it. And don't bother about the time you are dead. BTW. I'm 56 and I couldn't care less. Big tech companies seeking out areas in which national governments are failing and then providing parallel alternative services which may well be better than those provided by governments, but are also entirely under the control of billionaires and not the public through traditional democratic processes. For example, Facebook's Libra cryptocurrency and SpaceX. The former may be much scarier than the latter. True. But yeah. You get my point. Media monopolies. I think we know where this is going. Getting a one-in-lifetime job opportunity that I can't refuse somewhere outside of my country and losing the love of my life for going away while he has to stay to follow his dream as well. Very specific. It's because the things I'm studying for can only be successful outside of my country. And I'll wait 2-3 years after graduating, but probably not more than that before I find a job opportunity outside of this hole. His job is a lot more flexible and he can follow me while living his best life. I just hope we can both be ready for it at the same time. I definitely don't want him to quit his dream because of mine. The fact that we are losing land, temperatures are rising, and animals are going extinct all because of one species on Earth. But seriously, Michigan is slowly drowning. Kiribati will drown first. Their government has been trying to purchase higher land for a couple of years now, so they can relocate their country and people somewhere safe. 1. My country being lost when the sea levels rise. 2. WW3. Netherlands. Philippines. Living long enough to see my family's funeral and have no one for mine. Lose even more friends without making any more. Not finding a significant others, just graduated tertiary study. Haven't dated since high school. Not finding a good job. Not having the money to move out of my parents' house. Being fired without rhyme or reason, gotta love at-will states. And not being able to provide for my 4-year-old and my baby to be in my belly. Will I ever get a job to be able to afford having a family? Uncontrollable increase of population. Shortage of water and other things crucial to our everyday lives. The moments when my parents will pass away. That I'm going to end up bitter, lonely and miserable because I feel trapped in my current comfort zone. And don't have the guts to defend my health and happiness. I'm also scared of nuclear holocaust, which might actually happen, and climate change and its geopolitical consequences. That just a few pompous, bitter old men may spark WWII for their own selfish reasons. Sending hundreds of thousands of young people to fight and die in a global big dig measuring contest, while people throw away common sense and reject truth for their political party and support lies and liars. Nothing. I can't wait to see what the future brings. Being positive, way to go, man. Live now. Fear later, praying. 1. We are the verge of some kind of worldwide political revolution. The people are getting more restless and pissed off at governmental and big box business infrastructure. What scares me the most though is if history has taught us anything is that things are gonna get a hell of a lot worse before they get better. We have passed the point of no return. The whole regime will have to be burned down. 2. Overpopulation. And with that resource shortage and pollution. 3. Some kind of super virus. That's a ticking time bomb. Penicillin resilient bacteria is already a thing. Not to mention how densely populated and connected we are. All it takes is a spark and the fire will spread like madness. Basically the human race is at a tipping point and we're about to slide downhill ducking hard. I'm not saying that things won't eventually get better, but we're going to have to fall apart before we can rebuild. Given the pattern of plagues throughout history, kinda always feel like another one is right around the corner. But just think of how much a plague would help the environment though. Population densities could be dramatically reduced. Climate change and all the biblical level. Floods, massive fires, wars, tsunamis, droughts that are soon to happen. Overpopulation of the earth and the following migrant crisis will destroy the economies and systems of stable countries. It took over 200,000 years of human history for the world's population to reach 1 billion. And only 200 years to reach 7 billion. We're totally ducked as a species. Agreed. But the problem is not biological but more political. The world leaders don't want to admit this because it is politically incorrect. As someone who's been on their knees most of their high school and early adult life, that I'll never get back on my feet. I'm hospital security and one of our responsibilities is taking deceased patients from the room and putting them into the cooler trays. I'm afraid that somehow I will be aware of that happening to me when I die. Stupid. I know. Paying almost a quarter of my salary into a state pension that's mandatory and then having the Ponzi scheme fall. That the human population will continue to grow and nature and animals will only take damage because of it. Never being independent. I'm 24 at the moment and I cannot see being able to move out anytime soon. I have no savings and sort of just live week to week, paycheck to paycheck. I just can't imagine being able to save for a home. My parents inevitably passing away. And climate change. Two main things. 1. Climate change is going to be a lot worse a lot more quickly than everyone seems to realize. 2. The US has essentially moved to an advertising-based economy, 19% of economic output in 2014. At the same time the government has been waging a very successful war against the working class. The consumers. As consumption continues to dry up, ads are going to become worthless. As an American who works at a major tech company with no real survival skills, I expect to starve to death or be murdered by another starving person at some point in my life. A possible nuclear war. Or just wars in general. People getting dumber because of technology instead of using it to improve themselves. And the rising of fake news. But mostly unemployment and economic uncertainty. Because I'm a senior this year and I'm gonna be real pissed if I can't get a job after choosing a major. Either dying from climate change or a nuclear holocaust. If it's the latter, I'd love to be right under that gong when it drops. A quick and painless death will be much better than slowly dying of radiation poisoning. Cardi B wanting to run for Congress. As we strive to deal with the stress of a changing world, we realize there's little an individual can do, so we emotionally disconnect from the terrible things going on in the world in order to cope and just keep going. A fear I have is that we'll all become so emotionally closed off we'll stop caring about other people altogether, and it will be a slippery slope to the entire human race sliding into complete depressed apathy as our species goes extinct. No. I'm optimistic. I've felt for a long time that society should be more neighborly and self-sufficient. Sadly, it's come about through economical and politics means rather than education. Grow your own food. Save as much money as possible. Group together in relationships, either personal or social. Enjoy what you have. Don't live beyond your means. Those things will never change, and it's what gives me optimism for the future. Despite what the news throws at you. I honestly fear economic instability. With the advances in automation and technology, I fear the thought of when I eventually get my expensive degree. It will be useless because a robot can do a better job at it than me. Sorry for bad English. I just found out that my best friends, my surrogate family, are being made to leave the country at the end of the month. I fear trying to keep living my life without them. They are all I have. Today I start applying to jobs in their country. That picking up my whole life and moving across the world is scary too. But I'm less afraid of that than of losing them. As an American, I fear the political divide that's currently happening here. People are starting to believe their argument is invalid because they are, insert political party here. Media is only pushing the divide even further. You can see how CNN, MSNBC, Fox and Daily Wire just spew hate towards the other side and make each other look like the dumbest people in America, when neither is true. We've listened to too many opinionated articles. We've forgotten to listen to both sides of the aisle. We encourage hatred toward do-nothing Democrats or racist Republicans when you could talk to one of them in a civil manner and solve it without spewing hate. We've forgotten that your party isn't always right. We've forgotten that just because there's opposing statistics doesn't mean it's fabricated. As someone who attempted to read left and right wing articles for a year straight, it just got so ridiculous that I can't stand Fox and CNN or any leaning media. You start seeing the bullshit both sides spew to make themselves look like deities against the other. I'm not saying you can't choose to be Democrat or Republican, but just sit the duck down with someone who disagrees with you and listen thoroughly what they have to say. We've forgotten that